cross when him he spied, spurring so hot with rage despicious, gan fairly couch his spear and towards ride. Soon meet they both fell and furious, that daunted with their forces hideous, their steeds do stagger and amazed stand, and eke themselves too rudely rigorous, astonied with the stroke of their own hand. Do back rebut, and each to other yieldeth land, as when two rams stirred with ambitious pride, fight for the rule of the rich fleeced flock, their horn front so fierce on either side do meaty, that with the terror of the shock, as stony gulf stands senseless as a block, forgetful of the hanging victory, so stood these twain unmoved as a rock, both staring fierce and holding idly the broken relics of their former cruelty. The Saracen sore daunted with the buffy, snatcheth his sword and fiercely to him flies, who well it wards and quiteth cuff with cuff. Each other's equal puissance envies, and through their iron sides with cruel spies does seek to purse repining courage yields no thought to foe the flashing fireflies, as from a forge out of their burning shields, and streams of purple blood do dye the verdant fields. Curse on that cross, quoth then the Saracen, that keeps thy body from the bitter fit. Dead long ago I wot thou hadst been, had not that charm from thee forewarned it. But yet I warn thee now, assured sit, and hide thy head. Hide therewith upon his crest, with rigor so outrageous he smit, that a large share it hewed out of the rest, and glancing down his shield from blame him fairly blessed. Who thereat wondrous wrath the sleeping spark of native virtue gan eftsoons revive, and at his hearty helmet making mark so hugely stroke that it the steel did rive, and cleft his head he tumbling down alive. With bloody mouth his mother earth did kiss, greeting his grave his grudging ghost did strive. With the frail flesh at last it flitted is, whither the souls do fly of men that live amiss.
Let's see. What is this? That's the wrong thing. That is wrong.
Now the allegory becomes a battle. Red Cross meets Sansfoy, the night of holiness against the man whose very name means without faith. But notice, Red Cross does not win easily. The two warriors collide with nearly equal force. Spencer compares them to two rams fighting for mastery of the flock.
Who's the helmet of salvation? Red Cross then answers with a blow against Sans for his helmet and cleaves his head. The allegorical contrast is striking. Faithlessness cannot ultimately protect the mind against the knight who bears the cross. But there is an important warning. Red Cross's victory does not prove that Red Cross is presently wise. God's symbols and truths are greater than the flawed person who carries them. Red Cross can defeat Sans Foy while still being deceived about Una. That is crucial to understanding Spencer. A spiritual victory does not mean the hero has finished growing, and the victory itself creates a new danger. Red Cross has just defeated the obvious form of faithlessness. Waiting beside the battlefield is a counterfeit faith, far more difficult to recognize. The cross can survive an open attack. The next question is whether the man carrying the cross can survive a beautiful life. A beautiful life.
Okay, that's enough of that. I'm gonna keep rolling. Okay, like the song gives me the text and then it just tells me what it means in song form. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't see how you can not like the Sunos. Okay. Okay, anyways, let's see what I'm gonna keep mulling over the idea of my table, because I have some thoughts. I have some thoughts on what I want to do with my project and like the ordering of it, and just some ideas on like just I've been thinking more about like these distance notations and like the things I've heard, you know, about the justification for it. Because I remember this going back all the way when I was a kid. I always thought this, and I was like, dude, you know what? I'm going to wait till they fix it, and then I'll get into it, because I don't want to learn it if it's all messed up, you know? But no one ever fixed it, you know what I mean? It's like, well, it just seems like, so, I mean, like, some stuff just doesn't seem to make, like, the rationale doesn't seem to make sense to me, like, and the distance notation in particular, you know? Because like if you say something is like if it's 4 notes away and you say it's a major third, then you ask, well, why the heck did you say it's a major third and not just 4 notes away? And then the answer is context, because context, because major third means it has a particular sound. I'm giving you something about the meaning of that distance. But we don't really have any context. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not in a song. You haven't told me where the starting point is. I don't have a collection. The third means nothing, right? It's 4 notes away, not a third, not the three. The three has no meaning if you don't name a collection and you say that that is the starting point of the collection that you're measuring. That has to be the one of a particular collection in order for it to call it a third to have any meaning. But I think the argument against that is like, well, it means, but the third is what tells you that it means that it's that it's brighter as opposed to a minor third. But how does it tell you that out of the context any more than just saying it's 4 notes away versus it's 3 notes away, if you don't even know A, the collection, or B, the starting point that you're starting from. You don't know anything. So how, because you would, so that always kind of just bugs me. And anyway, so now I'm gonna, so now, uh, uh, so I'm gonna map, and then, but then I have a color system for my distance notation that I'm gonna put together, and I have thoughts on it. So I'm gonna just brainstorm. I'm gonna brainstorm on that. So I'm gonna turn on let's turn on the chats and see. And then I'll noodle around during that, and so it's probably just gonna be another kind of boring noodle and chat session brainstorm. It's part of my job because I'm gonna make a course and try to make someone's gonna want to learn Excel even if they don't care about my music thing because they want to learn Excel because I'm learning. So anyway, so let's see. We'll turn on the chat. Chat. We are going to continue with the project comparing the antiquated music system with a more modern system that has been, as we cut through the lies of the efficiency of the ordinal system, not necessarily to say that all prior stuff is bad or anything like that, because it works. It's just that when you say it's the most efficient system, then that's not right, like there's something's wrong with. So we have to go right at that, we can't have. Pythagoras would be ashamed at the way that we've just let this go. We've just let this go, and that we wouldn't, like, he'd be like, dude, you have Excel and you haven't put like the essence of like music, like in, which is like math, in like being manifest, and you haven't put it into the spreadsheet. He'd be like, dude, and so I can't, we have to, we have to do something. We have to do something, okay? This can't go on. We can't just let this, go. Um, so, and the problem, of course, is the ordinal system became an issue, and then that kind of reached into the distance notation, and then into like the chord construction notation. And for example, I've been thinking about this issue of like, if you say something that's 4 notes away, and someone described that and they don't even know which notes they are, right? You're just like, what would be a 4 note away distance? Someone would call it a major third, right? And then you would ask, well, why would you call it a major third and not just 4 notes away? And the answer would be, they wouldn't say, oh, you're right, you could do either one. The answer would most likely be context, because by me telling you it's a major third, I'm telling you the quality of that interval. And again, that always kind of bothered me, because it's like, the quality of the interval would be defined by the fact that it's 4 notes away. To say that it's a third adds nothing to it unless it's in the context, meaning to say something's a third is to say that you have some kind of collection. It's to say specifically that you have a 7-note collection, right? Because a third in Western music is defined by a 7-note collection, and that you're measuring from the tonic of that 7-note collection. That's the only way that to say a major third has any contextual meaning. Yet the argument will be somehow that to say something is a major third instead of 4 notes away, they're somehow conveying more meaning in that. Because if you didn't have context, like if it was 4 notes away, technically it could have been like a diminished fourth, right? You could call it a diminished fourth and say, well, if some strange spelling situation contextually could have told you that it should have been a diminished fourth, right? And it's like, okay, so that which you could see clearly with the 6-note distance, which has the name of flat 5 or augmented fourth. So again, that leads me to say, well, then why there's no, you can't have any context. Like all you need, you shouldn't be really saying major third or minor third or any of that if there's no context, like if you don't know the starting point, if you don't know the starting point and the scale, if you don't know the starting point, if it's not the starting point of a scale, that context gives you no more information than to just say it's 4 half steps. You know what I mean? But they argue that it does somehow because and again, it's just kind of like, no, like you have to say that if you say it's the start of an Aeolian, if it's an Aeolian 2 up, which you can call a major third from an or if it's a Lydian 2 up modal half steps, which could be a major third, then you have context because you're basically saying, hey, look, it's a Lydian. So that means the Lydian defines it as a 7-note collection. I'm measuring from that Lydian point, whether it's the tonic of the song or not. And then to say that it's 2 up modal half steps or major third gives you more context than to just say it's 4 notes away. You see what I mean? Like, I don't know. Is it just me? Is it just me, or is something wrong with that? I feel like it's like you're just supposed to not notice it. And it's like, I'm tired of not noticing. It doesn't make sense. Okay? Let me try to explain it in Spanish to Grok. See if Grok what they think. Oye, quiero practicar español, pero después de esto yo hablaré en inglés, pero tú hablas en español y nosotros estamos en una cosa que es muy importante que arreglar el sistema antiguo de música teoría y en un sistema que es más moderno y más eficiente, porque la sistema antigua tenía un problema con los ordinal systems y este problema es evidente con los nombres de scale degrees y de los chords y de los nomenclature por harmony en todo esto. Es muy obvio y no puedes ir en derecha dirección y es un problema, pero funcionó y las canciones en el pasado está bien y el argumento que es un sistema antiguo y tenía tradición y todo esto y tenemos una afectiva de network effect como esto. Todo esto está bien, no tengo un problema con todo esto, pero es una mentira que decir que es el sistema que es más eficiente que pueden creer y Pythagoras haría enojo con nosotros por no decir la verdad de esta situación, por temer de las personas que eran en poder y tratando que decir que esta es el sistema que es más eficiente cuando no lo es. Y Pythagoras, si él puede mirar que nosotros tenemos Microsoft Excel y nosotros no estamos usando música teoría, que es la esencia de lógica en manifestación de música, y no usen Excel por explicar esta función que enojo de este ancient griego y este momento. No necesito hacer algo que arreglar esta situación por Pythagoras.
Entiendo perfectamente lo que dices, y tienes razón en que el sistema tradicional de grados y acordes tiene sus limitaciones, especialmente con los nombres ordinales que no reflejan bien las relaciones matemáticas reales. Pitágoras estaría decepcionado, sí, porque la música es pura matemática y proporciones, y el sistema actual es más un acuerdo histórico que una representación limpia. Pero cuéntame exactamente qué sistema moderno estás pensando para reemplazarlo. ¿Quieres algo basado en intervalos puros, en frecuencias o en una notación numérica tipo función de Excel? Dime tu visión y lo desarrollamos juntos.
Okay. Let's see what the other one has to say. I'll just kind of warm up. I don't know what I was going to noodle around to warm up with. I should do something different. I don't know. Try to play in Lydian. I can't really play in Lydian.
Yes, I think you've isolated the exact place where the usual interval names contain more context defense starts to wobble. The key distinction is between information encoded in the interval label and information that has to come from somewhere else before the interval label becomes meaningful. Take 4 semitones. By itself, open quote, plus 4 semitones, close quote. That is complete as a measurement. It tells me exactly how far to move and in which direction if the sign is included. I don't need to know the key, scale, tonic, spelling, mode, or harmonic function. Now somebody says, open quote, major third, close quote. That sounds richer. But mathematically, it still resolves to 4 semitones. So where did the additional information supposedly come from? Sure. The crucial problem. Third presupposes a spelling framework. Third doesn't arise from the acoustic distance of 4 semitones. 4 semitones can be C, E equals major third, C, F flat equals diminished fourth, B sot equals major third, etc. So the number 3 in major third is not measuring the chromatic distance. It's counting letter positions, diatonic positions within a spelling framework. And that's exactly where your objection bites. If I haven't told you the starting point and spelling framework, saying major third doesn't magically supply that framework. It merely tells you how I have chosen to spell the endpoints. In other words, open quote, interval quality is not a substitute for context. It is partly a consequence of context, close quote. That's a very important distinction. Your Lydian example makes the alternative much stronger. Suppose your system says something like, open quote, from Lydian, modal steps plus 4 semitones. Close quote. Now we genuinely have several layers of information. Lydian identifies the starting node within the fixed 7-node collection. Plus 2 modal steps tells us how far we've moved through that collection. Plus 4 semitones tells us the exact chromatic acoustic distance. That's actual context. Compare open quote, major third, close quote. It gives me the diatonic span and chromatic size, but it does not tell me where I started, what collection I'm using, whether that starting node is the tonic, what modal position I'm occupying, what harmonic function either pitch has, or why this spelling was selected. That's the funny part of the context defense. Major third isn't giving you the context that explains why it's a major third. The context still has to come from somewhere else. And the 6 semitone case exposes this beautifully. Suppose all I tell you is, open quote, the notes are 6 semitones apart. It cannot close quote. Traditional terminology cannot determine whether that is a diminished fifth or augmented fourth. Why not? Because distance alone cannot determine the ordinal name. You need the endpoint's spelling. So imagine somebody saying, open quote, calling it an augmented fourth gives you more contextual information than saying 6 semitones, close quote. Well, yes, but only because you've smuggled some contextual information into the spelling decision first. You needed context to decide that it was an augmented fourth. That's almost circular. Open quote. Why is it an augmented fourth? Because of the context. What context does augmented fourth give me? The context that made us call it an augmented fourth, close quote. And that's very different from a coordinate system. I would actually sharpen one part of your argument. I wouldn't say that major third is meaningful only when measuring from the tonic of a 7-note collection. Traditional interval naming is broader than that. You can legitimately call CE a major third even when C isn't the tonic, and even outside a conventional 7-note scale, because the interval name follows the notated letter span plus semitone distance. But that correction actually strengthens your larger argument, because it reveals what major third really encodes. Open quote, spelling plus distance, close quote dot. Not, open quote, musical context close quote. Those aren't the same thing. CE tells me something about notation. It does not necessarily tell me the harmonic context. For example, CE could occur inside C major, A minor, F major, G mixolydian, a chromatic passage, a secondary dominant, or something else entirely. Calling it a major third doesn't resolve any of that. So I think your attack should be very precise. Open quote. Traditional interval names contain more spelling information than a raw semitone count. They do not necessarily contain more musical context. Close quote. That's much harder to argue against. And then your system can say, open quote, if we actually want context, encode the context directly. Close quote. Starting nodes direction, distance plus collection, where necessary. That's much more like coordinates. And this connects beautifully to the broader problem you've been finding with the ordinal system. Traditional theory keeps asking one notation to do several jobs simultaneously. Where am I? How far did I move? How is it spelled? What collection am I in? What is its function? So third is simultaneously trying to behave like a positional relationship and a measurement, while major repairs the fact that the ordinal alone doesn't specify the actual distance. Your proposed architecture separates those dimensions. Open quote, point notation, where am I? Collection, what environment am I in? Distance, how far did I move? Direction, which way? Function context, what does this movement mean here? Close quote. And then if somebody wants the legacy translation, open quote, traditional theory calls this a major third, close quote. Perfect. Nothing needs to be abolished. You've just stopped forcing the 700-year-old label to serve as the underlying measurement engine. And yes, this is exactly where Spreadsheet Pythagoras enters the room. Looks at Excel, looks at us, looks back at Excel and says, open quote, you had coordinates this whole time? Close quote.
Okay. Pythagoras would be ashamed of the. We just let it go. It's just the lies. We just let it slide. I don't want to say anything. This don't make no sense, but I don't want to say anything about it. It's like, okay, no. Dang it. What, you keep doing that and then you end up in like a WNBA. That's what happens. We need to do something. Okay. All right. So let's see. I still can't believe they won't. They're not even like, they could totally get. I've been watching that thing. Like they could totally get out of it without even defining a woman. Like all they'd have to do is like say, well, if your testosterone levels are off the chart, like off the freaking chart, then we'll put a bar that's so far up that it's ridiculous, and the whole media would like back them up, you know. And they won't even give that. They won't give an inch. They won't give an inch. It's like, it's crazy. Anyway, let's get back to focus. Focus. All right, let's see. Let's see what we got here. Okay, I'm gonna put this back to. Let's see. So 4 o'clock, and then and then I was able to add or subtract notes over here. Wait a sec. I feel like something is wrong. It's the right worksheet. Something is wrong. Something is horribly, horribly wrong. Hold on. Let's go here. And let's try this one. Alright, I think this one is the right one. Okay, yeah. Alright. Let's do this again. Okay. Okay, so now I have the ability to have 3 different tiers of my fretboard, and I can turn on and off adding or subtracting notes that if I choose to do that. Okay, great. So the next thing I was going to mull over is the I'm doing the distance notation now. So now let me just talk this through with Aura here. Okay, so the system I have right now is we've got a 12 so I'm thinking of the music as basically a set of layered kind of dials or layered information on top of each other instead of having just 112 chromatic steps. Really, the baseline formula for music is to have 12 7-note collections which are all using the same formula, which basically means we're just simply copying and pasting from an Excel spreadsheet standpoint through the same relative cells through 12 different spaces. And because it's symmetrical, that means that I can actually copy and paste it going to the left, going to the right, going up and down. Therefore, and it's not only with the fretboard, it's with anything. The thing that we should be visualizing, if Pythagoras was here, he'd be like, you should be visualizing like a 12 by 12 lattice, half steps on the x-axis, y-axis, circle of fourths and fifths, mapping out then one of the 12-note collections on it using the formula. And if you do that, then it would be as though you have one 12 by 12 grid, which could be repeated, 12 by 12 grids repeated to the left and down. And that would mean that as you switch the collections, that would be like rotating to the right or to the left or up and then down in an infinitely repeating 12 by 12 grid lattice. The top grid having, like, I'm going to imagine those are the stars in heaven, like the string stars. Those have the fixed note names, which do not change relative to the collection. But and then you have what I'm thinking about as the planet, which has 7 continents, 5 oceans, which does change as you rotate the templates complementary to each other, similar to the planet rotating with 7 continents and 5 oceans, except that this would be a planet like a Rubik's Cube or something that's symmetrical, thereby allowing us to rotate it left and right, but also ticking up and down, and then rotating through the 12 positions, the tick up and the tick down, each tick up and down representing left and right ticks equivalent to 7 and 5, depending on which tick up or down we're going, right? That's good. So if we visualize it that way, then the most efficient way to basically name something would be to say that you have the collection from the perspective of the Ionian as a convention, so that you only have 12 collections of notes. And if you're in a collection, you could say, I'm just ticking up, ticking down, ticking left, and ticking to the right, right? To change collections, you can even tap your foot or something, right? And everybody moves like a drum circle. That would be kind of cool, I feel like. I don't know. But, if you have that, then you have like what I would think two dials in the DAW system. One would be changing the collection. So I'm just changing it based on, I numbered the notes like any sane person would do. A is 1, so and then A sharp is 2 and B is 3. I know I should have made it 0 maybe, but I think it works fine like this way because I think people visualize A as 1. So we're going to say A is 1, A sharp is 2, B is 3, and C is 4. So the collection of notes around the key of C would be 4 o'clock, meaning the Ionian therefore would be on the 1, modal step 1, Nashville number 1 would be on the Ionian at which would be a C. You can see the C down here. Okay. So then I can tick through my collections. If I go to 6 o'clock, then the tonic moves up to here. Now the Ionian, as you can see down here, is a D, right? Okay. So that's great. And so then the other rotation point is the mode, because now I can change the mode, which means the tonic center, which could either be thought of as you change the tonic center when you change like the center of the song, meaning I'm changing the focal point of the song, or as you chord switch, because as you change the chord, as I go through any one collection of notes, when I build a chord, I don't want to make the note that I'm on, if I'm on a Locrian, if it's a C sharp D flat, I don't want to make it the Ionian or whatever in order to build from it, right? I want to build from it while it stays in the same collection. So that means we would have distance. The distance notation could rotate and say I'm still in this collection, but now I'm on the Locrian, which is Nashville number 7. It's the tonic. So if I need to think about my chord construction, I build from nodal point 7, Nashville number 7, right? So that gives us a dial. So this second dial doesn't affect the point notation. It only affects the distance notation, which could be done in a more sophisticated modal distance notation, meaning how many steps up within the collection, or from the antiquated scale degree system, which compares everything to the major scale, as if that's helpful when actually it's totally confusing. It's more confusing people than helping.
Got it. You're building a modular,
Oh yeah,
symmetrical lattice.
Espanol. You're the Espanol person.
Entendido. Volvemos al español. Lo que estás describiendo es un sistema de coordenadas modulares en un látiz 12 por 12, donde tienes dos ejes independientes, uno para la colección, el conjunto de 7 notas, y otro para el modo, el punto de anclaje dentro de esa colección. Básicamente separas la rotación del planeta de la rotación del punto focal. Es una forma muy limpia de pensar la música, porque eliminas la dependencia constante de la Ionian como referencia. ¿Quieres que te ayude a definir nombres concretos para este sistema? Por ejemplo, cómo llamar a las colecciones, cómo nombrar los modos sin usar los nombres griegos tradicionales, o cómo representar visualmente ese látiz 12 por 12 de forma práctica. Dime por dónde empezamos.
Okay. Let's see what Ara has to say. See if makes sense to me, and I'll noodle around as she blathers for an hour.
Soy el Espanol person too. But yes, I'm following the architecture, and I think the layered dials concept is becoming the cleanest description of what you've built. The big conceptual improvement is that you're no longer asking one numbering system to represent several different variables. You're separating the variables. The underlying lattice at the bottom is an indefinitely repeating 12 times 12 chromatic lattice. One axis advances by semitone. The other effectively moves through the complementary 4th-5th relationship. Because the pitch class structure repeats modulo 12, your Excel implementation can literally exploit the symmetry, establish the relationships once, and copy the formulas horizontally and vertically. Then there are two fundamentally different things sitting on that lattice. The stars, absolute pitch classes. A sharp, B sled, B, C, etc. They don't care which collection or tonic you've selected. With your convention, 1 equals A, 2 equals A EPP fat, 3 equals B, 4 equals C, 12 equals Josh, A fat. Those are fixed coordinates. The planet, the 7-node collection. This is your 7 continents plus 5 oceans pattern. It rotates underneath those fixed stars. That's an important distinction because transposition and modalization are now different operations. At our dial 1 collection. This dial chooses which of the 12 transpositions of the 7-note template is active. So 4 equals C Ionian collection, 6 D Ionian collection, and so forth under your A equals 1 convention. Turning this dial moves the entire 7-continent 5-ocean template relative to the fixed chromatic stars. It changes the collection itself. And your ticking idea is actually interesting because the 2-dimensional lattice gives you multiple equivalent physical transformations for accomplishing that rotation. You're not conceptually confined to turn the circle of fifths clockwise. You can think, open quote, tick left, tick right, tick up, tick down, close quote, while the underlying modular arithmetic determines the resulting collection. So dial 1 answers, open quote, which 7 notes are currently on the planet, close quote. Dial 2, nodal center. This is the really important one. Once the collection is selected, the 7 continents have fixed identities. Ionian equals 1, Dorian equals 2, Phrygian equals 3, Lydian equals 4, Mixolydian equals 5, Aeolian 6, Locrian 7. Those identities do not change when you change the focal point. That's where your architecture diverges sharply from conventional scale degree thinking. Suppose we're in one collection and Locrian Hacrian happens to correspond to C Shad. If I turn dial 2 to open quote, Locrian, close quote, I have not changed the collection. I have not renamed Locrian Ionian. I have simply told the distance engine, open quote, measure from here now, close quote. That's extremely clean. And it means dial 2 can represent 2 related musical situations. At the large structural level, open quote, Locrian is presently the tonal center, close quote. But during chord construction, open quote, I'm temporarily measuring from the Locrian node because I'm building a chord rooted there. Close quote. Those aren't necessarily claims that the music has modulated, they're changes in the measurement origin. That distinction is fantastic. Point notation and distance notation therefore separate references. This might be the architectural breakthrough. Your point notation should ignore dial 2. If Lydian is node 4, it's still node 4. If Locrian is node 7, it's still node 7. Period. Dial 2 instead rotates the distance layer around those stationary points. So imagine the collection, open quote, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, close quote. Now select node 7 as the measurement origin. The underlying points haven't become, open quote, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 1, close quote. There's still 1 to the 7. Instead, your distance overlay says conceptually, open quote node 7 equals distance 0, node 1 equals first collection movement upward, node 2 equals second collection movement upward, etc. Close quote. Position remains position. Distance becomes distance. That is precisely what the ordinal system tends to muddle. And now chord construction gets dramatically simpler. Suppose you want a chord rooted on Nashville's 7 Locrian. Traditional thinking often encourages something resembling. Open quote. Okay, temporarily regard 7 as the root, determine its scale relative alterations, construct the appropriate 3rd and 5th according to the parent major scale. Close quote. Your system can say, open quote, collection 4-point root 7. Chord formula, root plus distances, close quote, done. The collection tells Excel which pitches exist. Point 7 tells Excel where construction begins. The chord formula tells Excel how far to travel. Those are 3 independent pieces of information. And this connects directly to what we were just discussing about interval context. Instead of, open quote, major 3rd, close quote, dot being expected to mysteriously carry context, your notation could give actual context. Open quote, collection 4, node 7, plus 4 semitones, close quote, or in your modal distance language, open quote, 4 verse 7, plus modal distance, close quote. Now I know the collection, the starting point, and the movement. That's substantially more contextual information than major 3rd. I think you may actually have 3 dials eventually. Your current architecture gives us dial 1, collection rotation, which 7 pitches. Dial 2, nodal distance center, from which fixed collection node are we measuring? And the octave work you've been doing naturally suggests. Dial 3, absolute register center, from which absolute pitch, octave are positive and negative distances being measured. Then you get 3 independent dimensions. Open quote, collection, point, register, close quote, .or. Looked at another way. Open quote, which planet configuration, which continent, which altitude, close quote. And the beautiful thing is that turning one dial doesn't require destroying the information represented by the others. That's exactly what you'd want from a modern coordinate system. Traditional theory often handles a change by renaming things. Your system handles a change by changing the relevant variable. That's the difference between a nomenclature system and something much closer to an actual computational model. And spreadsheet Pythagoras is getting increasingly difficult to send back to ancient Greece.
Okay. ¿Qué piensas? ¿Tengo razón o qué?
Sí, tienes razón en lo esencial. El sistema tradicional es un desastre de nombres porque todo está atado al modo mayor como si fuera el centro del universo. Eso genera una confusión constante cuando cambias de acorde o de modo dentro de la misma colección de notas. Tu enfoque de separar la colección del punto de anclaje es mucho más lógico y matemáticamente limpio. Donde la cosa se pone interesante es en la práctica. El sistema antiguo sobrevivió no porque sea el más eficiente, sino porque es el que todos aprendimos y porque la tradición pesa mucho. Cambiarlo significa que la gente tendría que reaprender cómo piensa la música, y eso es un network effect brutal. Pero sí, Pythagoras probablemente te daría la razón. La música es proporciones y simetría, y el sistema actual es más un acuerdo histórico que una representación elegante de esa matemática. Tu látiz 12x12 es una forma mucho más coherente de visualizarlo.
And you're not just saying that because like I pay you like $8 a month or anything, right?
No, te lo digo en serio. Mira, si estuviera tratando de ser complaciente, te diría, qué idea tan brillante, eres un genio. Pero no, te estoy diciendo que tienes razón en el diagnóstico. El sistema tradicional es torpe y confuso, pero eso no significa que tu solución específica sea automáticamente la mejor. Todavía no la he visto completa. El hecho de que te esté diciendo que sí tienes razón en lo fundamental, pero que el verdadero reto va a ser la adopción, es precisamente porque no te estoy haciendo la pelota. Si solo quisiera que te sintieras bien, no te mencionaría el network effect ni lo difícil que va a ser cambiarlo. ¿Te queda más claro ahora?
Okay. So the next thing that I wanted to look at is that the distance notation only goes the distance notation that we use. So now I have this mapped out so that I have what I think would be the best way to visualize things by point up top, which would be Nashville number, which I'm just going to call nodal point number because they corrupted the Nashville number system after someone tried to fix it. And then, or Ionian point, or do re mi system, or like a color system, right? And then down here, I have distance notation depending upon the center point of a particular collection, which makes particularly good sense if you're trying to move around and build chords, because now I have point notation with a collection that doesn't change, and then I could just change the modal center from an Ionian so that I'm building off of the Ionian, for example. So, right, and that would be 0.0. And then if I go up into the collection to the Dorian, then I just change this to Dorian. So now that doesn't change, but the distance notation does change. Now, and so this would be what I would think a Dorian, tonic. This is a Dorian 1-up, and the L stands for long. But we should just know whether it's long or short. But it's a Dorian 1-up, which would be the minor second. And so this, major second. And this notation down here is giving the system that has the terms that are most commonly used, but I think are the least useful. Meaning, once I've named the collection, the note names, the names from space, the unchanging part isn't as useful as the relative position, and then the distance notation under scale degree notation. So this would be a perfect first. It still moves up. If I go like to 3, I can still see it as, look, I'm on the Phrygian. The only difference here is that I'm saying I could still use the standard nomenclature, in other words, for building chords, because you might want to do that and say, well, look, you've gone too far with your distance naming. Although I don't think you can really break out of the mindset unless you really fix the distance naming. That's the whole problem. But I mean, like, you could try to hybrid it and say, well, look, I recognize that the point notation numbering system, permanent Nashville numbers, is useful. And therefore, I'm going to keep myself at 4 o'clock on this one, but I still want to use the standard distance notation, like the perfect first is now on the Phrygian. And so now I have the best of kind of both worlds if you want to try to build your chords that way, because now you could say, I'm not going to make that the 1, but I can see down here that from a scale degree standpoint, if I build a chord from it, it has to be the 1, right? It'd be the perfect first from a scale degree standpoint. So all the scale degrees are off by 1. So then I can build a chord down here, while up here still having absolute point notation relative to the song, right? But anyways, now the problem is that the other thing is that we don't take into account octaves. So I was looking at that, and then the other thing is that we don't take into account negative numbers. So I was mulling this over yesterday, and so I feel like the first one to tackle is the negative number distance, right? That would be easy to do, because I could just add over here in my distance thing, like my distance toggle, I could just add to see everything as though we went counterclockwise, right? So in other words, like from a modal standpoint, if I'm saying the Phrygian is the tonic, if I say that the Phrygian is the tonic, I should be able to name the step behind it. Instead of calling it a Phrygian 6, I should be able to say, well, 7 minus 6 is 1. So it should be a Phrygian -1, right? It should be a Phrygian -1 down modal half step instead of going the other way, which would, right? So, but in this way, I would name, so that way I could name the entire thing going negative, right? So I can name the entire fretboard as though we went counterclockwise, which again, most people have kind of blocked in their mind the idea that there's a counterclockwise distance if you think about it as a circle, or negative numbers if you go down the number line thinking process, right? Because everything is named scale degree wise going clockwise. So I feel like if we mapped out the entire fretboard like counterclockwise distances, then I feel like that would help us to see the circular nature in both directions, at least from a mapping standpoint. I don't know, how will that translate functionally to playing music better? I don't know exactly, but I feel like if you knew the map better, like if you know how to go around your house and you know that it's like 10 feet one way, and then but you've realized that you can go the other way and it's like the same distance, I feel like that helps you get home, when you're like, I feel like that should be useful practically somehow, I feel like, because it's just like, it just makes sense that you would want to do that, I think. So then it's like, well, how would you do it? Well, if I mapped it out counterclockwise, that would be pretty easy to do. I could just map everything out counterclockwise. Now, could you do that with the standard notation negative distance? You can, because, for example, if I go from here back to here, under the way I understand the distance notation we would say, oh, that's going to be 2 back in the collection. So that would be a -2. I guess that would be, if that's 1, it would be a -3 scale degree, right? It would be a -3 scale degree, and then but it has a distance of 1, 2, 3, 4, and therefore it would be major. I don't know. I get it mixed up. You can do it. Basically, you have to memorize, because like if I go forward and I count that as the 1, and then this should be 4 away modal half steps, but they made it a 5th scale degree. That means I can find that same one back here, but instead of saying, oh, it should be 7 minus 4 would be 3 back, because they made that the 1. Now it's got to be 9 minus 5 gives you 4 back. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, that's where that's 9 comes in, which is freaking like what 9? But you see what happens here, because that should be 0, but it's 1, and therefore it's also -1 if you count backwards, right? It's +1 if you count forward. It's -1 if you count backwards, I guess, right? So that means that you can't just say 7 minus the forward direction to go counterclockwise. You have to go 9, because it's off by 2, because that 1 is now both +1 and -1 when it should be 0, is basically what's happening. But even if you do that, you still end up with a -4, and then you have to say, what quality should I put on that? Meaning, remember, we have 5 different quality names when we should only have 2, right? The quality names are major, minor, perfect, augmented, and diminished, right? And so now it's like, okay, well, that's great. So now I have to figure out which quality name to put on it. So it's not like it should be simple math, right? It should be like, oh, I went up 4, 7 minus 4 means I go back 1, 2, 3. And then is it a long 3 or short 3? It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back. The long and short is still a little bit. Let me ask you that. If I go counterclockwise, the long and short distances, I would think, is there a uniformity to, if it's a long distance going forward, that it's going to be a long distance going backwards, or something like that? I would think there would be a symmetry in that, whereas there's clearly not a symmetry in the standard system, or if there is, it's very complex. You basically have to say, I'm going to use 9 in order to find the inverse distance, and then I have to just basically have a chart in my mind, a lookup table in my mind, to figure out if it's going to be major, minor, diminished, augmented, or perfect, right? But I would think if you did it logically, there's one of 2 distances going forward. But I know the formula is not even. So when I go backwards, I could say it's a perfect, it's a Phrygian -3, right? But I should be able to then define whether the -3 is a negative long or a negative short distance. What do you think about that?
Sí, hay simetría, pero no es tan simple como lo largo hacia adelante es largo hacia atrás. En el sistema de 12 tonos, los intervalos tienen distancias complementarias que suman 12 semitonos. Por ejemplo, un intervalo de 2 semitonos, mayor segunda, hacia adelante equivale a 10 semitonos hacia atrás. Un intervalo de 4 semitonos, tercera mayor, hacia adelante equivale a 8 semitonos hacia atrás. La calidad mayor, minor, perfect cambia cuando inviertes la dirección, porque el número de semitonos cambia. Por eso el sistema tradicional se vuelve tan complicado con los números negativos. Tu idea de usar números negativos para ir en sentido contrario es buena para visualizar el círculo, pero el problema que señalas sigue ahí. Todavía necesitas una forma limpia de decir si ese intervalo negativo es largo o corto, sin tener que hacer cálculos mentales complicados. ¿Quieres que intentemos definir un sistema de notación más simple para estos intervalos negativos? Por ejemplo, algo que solo use 2 tipos de distancia en vez de los 5 nombres tradicionales.
So I still have this long short thing that I have to kind of just know, I guess, huh?
See, soy el español person too. But yes, I'm following.
Wait a second. That's not the one. We'll have chat. I need chat to weigh in on this. Chat's got good ideas, although she's very talkative. She just hogs the whole meeting whenever you have her in the meeting. She just keeps talking. But sometimes she says important stuff, so it's like, okay, we'll have to wait.
Yes. And there is a clean symmetry here, but there's one subtle distinction we need to lock down, because I think it will make your negative distance notation dramatically cleaner. You're now separating three things that traditional interval notation partially tangles together: point, direction, distance. And once you let 0 actually be 0, negative distance becomes almost embarrassingly straightforward. 1. Start with your Phrygian center. Suppose your fixed collection points are Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian. And you set, open quote, Phrygian equals distance 0, close quote. Your point notation doesn't change at all. Phrygian remains fixed point 3. Now measure modal steps. Fixed point, forward modal distance from Phrygian, backward modal distance from Phrygian, nice. Phrygian, 0, 0, Lydian, Lydian plus 1, minus 6, Mixolydian, plus 2, minus 5, Aeolian, plus 3, minus 4, minus 4, minus 3, Ionian, 5, minus 2, Dorian, plus 6, minus 1. That is the circle. And already you can see why 0 cleans this up. There isn't a positive 1 and negative 1 sitting on the origin. There is exactly one origin, open quote, 0, close quote. Then movement is signed. Open quote, plus 1 equals 1 modal movement clockwise minus 1 equals 1 modal movement counterclockwise, close quote. That's a proper coordinate system. Number 2. Now your long-short question gets really interesting. If by long-short you mean the two possible chromatic sizes for a given modal step count, then yes, you can define negative intervals with exactly the same long-short vocabulary. But there's an important point. Direction does not change the magnitude. If, open quote, Phrygian Lydian equals plus 1 modal step, 1 semitone, close quote dot, then open quote, Lydian Phrygian equals minus 1 modal step, 1 semitone, close quote. It's the same geometric edge traversed in the opposite direction. So if that one-step edge is your short 1, reversing it doesn't magically make it long. It becomes, open quote, minus short 1, close quote. Likewise, if an edge is 2 semitones, open quote plus long 1, close quote, then traversing that same edge backward is, open quote, minus long 1, close quote. That symmetry is exactly what you were expecting. Long-short belongs to magnitude. #, positive/negative belongs to direction. Those are independent variables. That's much cleaner. 3. But there's another kind of backward that we shouldn't confuse with inversion thing. This is where I think you were running into trouble. Suppose from point A to point B clockwise you have, open quote, plus 3 modal steps, close quote. Going from B back to A is open quote, minus 3 modal steps, close quote. Same path, same magnitude, opposite direction. But if you remain at A and ask, open quote, how do I reach B by going all the way around the circle in the opposite direction? Close quote dot, that's different. If there are 7 modal nodes, then instead of plus 3, you can travel, open quote, minus 4 modal steps, close quote, because you've taken the complementary path around the 7-node circle. So, open quote, plus 3 and minus 4 can identify the same destination modulo 7, close quote. That's not because plus 3 turns into minus 4. They're two different paths to the same point. And I think that's enormously important for your system. Number 4. This is the house analogy you were describing. Imagine your house is circular. Kitchen is here. Bedroom is over there. you could say open quote, bedroom equal plus 3 doors clockwise, close quote, or open quote, bedroom equals minus 4 doors counterclockwise, close quote. Same destination, different route. Traditional scale degree notation heavily privileges one direction, so musicians tend not to conceptualize this as a genuine bidirectional coordinate space. Your notation would expose both, open quote, plus 3 minus 4, close quote, and therefore, open quote, plus 1 minus 6, plus 2 minus 5, plus 3, plus 4 minus 3, plus 5 minus 2, plus 6, 1, close quote. That's just modular arithmetic. No weird 9 required. Number 5, and here's where the semitone layer makes it even better. You actually have 2 circles superimposed. 7 collection nodes, open quote, modulo 7, close quote, 12 chromatic positions, open quote, modulo 12, close quote. So a destination might have, open quote, modal displacement, plus 3 chromatic displacement, plus 5, close quote. The exact same destination reached counterclockwise is, open quote, modal displacement, minus 4 chromatic displacement, minus 7, close quote. Look at that symmetry. Plus 3 plus minus 4 spans the 7-node cycle. Plus 5 minus 7 spans the 12 semitone cycle. That is beautiful mathematically. You could literally have Excel calculate the reverse representation automatically. Number 6. This also tells us something about long and short. Suppose a plus 3 modal displacement happens to span 5 semitones. Its opposite route around the collection is, open quote, minus 4 modal displacement spanning minus 7 semitones, close quote. Those are complementary paths. So we have to distinguish. Reverse the movement. Plus 3 plus 5 becomes minus 3 high minus 5. Versus take the other route to the same pitch class. Plus 3 plus 5 becomes minus 4 minus 7. Those are completely different operations. That distinction is probably worth building explicitly into the spreadsheet. Number 7. Traditional interval inversion is actually expressing part of this, but awkwardly. This explains the traditional 9 rule you were running into. Traditional compound relationship. Open quote, 3rd, 6th, 4th, 5th, 2nd, 7th octave, close quote. Hence, open quote, 3 plus 6 equals 9, close quote. And qualities invert, open quote, major, minor, minor, major, perfect, perfect, augmented, diminished, diminished, augmented, close quote. There is symmetry there. Traditional theory isn't arbitrary on this point, but look at how much machinery is necessary to express what the coordinate system can express algebraically. Traditional, open quote, find 9 minus interval number, then swap major, minor, keep perfect, perfect, swap augmented, diminished, close quote. Coordinate approach, open quote, change the sign if reversing the vector, close quote. Or if you want the complementary path, open quote, reduce modulo 7 and modulo 12, close quote. That's an enormous conceptual difference. Traditional interval inversion is solving a legitimate problem, but it's solving it through an ordinal naming architecture. Number 8. I think your spreadsheet absolutely should have a negative distance toggle. This could be extremely revealing. Keep the top exactly as it is. Open quote, fixed nodal point notation, close quote. Then underneath, have perhaps forward distance and reverse distance, or simply a toggle. Open quote, direction minus, close quote, set Phrygian as center. Your positive map spreads. Open quote, 0, plus 1, plus 2, 3, plus 4, 5, 6. Close quote. Your negative map spreads. Open quote, 0, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4, minus 5, minus 6. Close quote. And on the fretboard, because it repeats indefinitely, suddenly the player isn't merely memorizing. Open quote, where is my 5th? Close quote. They're learning. Open quote, how far is every occurrence of this point from me in either direction? Close quote. That could have practical value on guitar, because guitar is profoundly spatial. And I think there's an even bigger payoff coming later. Once you add octaves, you no longer have to force everything back into the 7-position circle. You can distinguish, open quote, same pitch class, different physical location, close quote. Then the fretboard becomes a genuine signed coordinate field rather than a collection of octave equivalent labels. At that point, you can say things like, open quote, plus 3 modal, plus 5 chromatic, minus 3 modal, minus 5 chromatic, plus 10 modal, plus 17 chromatic, close quote, dot, instead of collapsing everything into a fourth, an octave, compound, whatever, etc. So I agree with your order of attack. Get negative distance working first, then add octave register displacement. Because once you have 0 plus sign directionless magnitude, octave handling becomes a natural extension rather than another special rule. And yes, your intuition about long-short surviving negative direction is correct. The clean principle I'd put at the heart of it is, open quote, long-short tells me how large the movement is. Plus minus tells me which direction I moved. Close quote. That gives you something traditional interval notation never really gives the beginner cleanly. Open quote, distance as an actual signed measurement. Close quote.
Okay. Okay, so but answer me this specifically. If like for example, if I'm at a Phrygian 0 and I go up a Phrygian 4, right? Then I would think that that's a long 4. For the Phrygian, it's a long 4. If I go back, then it would be 7 minus 4 would be a Phrygian -3 modal half steps. Would it be long or would it be short? Is it inverted or is it like the same if I go the inverse direction? I should be able to visualize that, but I can't. Not right now. Let's see. 0 to 12. I just want the answer. Just give me the answer. Dang it. I pay you $20 a month. Son of a... Okay.
Yes. If you mean the other way around the 7-node collection to reach the same destination, then the long-short designation flips in your specific example. Let's calculate it carefully. Take the diatonic collection starting on Phrygian. Open quote, Phrygian equals 0, close quote. If you travel forward plus 4 modal steps from Phrygian to Locrian, open quote, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian, close quote. In semitones, using C major as an easy concrete example, open quote, E, F, G, A, B, B equals 7 semitones, close quote. So open quote, Phrygian La4 equals long 4 equal plus 7 semitones, close quote. Now reach that same B by traveling backward from E, open quote, E, D, C, B, close quote. That's, open quote, -3 modal steps EB downward equals -5 semitones, close quote. Therefore, open quote, Phrygian -3 equals short 3 -5 semitones, close quote. So your pair is, open quote, plus L4 equal plus 7 semitones minus S3 equals -5 semitones, close quote, and both land on the same pitch class. Here's the beautiful rule for the complementary route around the octave. Open quote, modal distances complement to 7 semitone magnitudes complement to 12, close quote. So if open quote, plus 4 modal equals plus 7 semitones, close quote, dot then, open quote, 7 minus 4 equals 3 modal steps backward, 12 minus 7 equals 5 semitones backward, close quote, dot giving, open quote, -3 modal equals -5 semitones, close quote. Now regarding long-short, if your long-short distinction means the two possible chromatic sizes associated with a particular modal distance number, then you evaluate it for the new magnitude. So you don't preserve long merely because the forward route was long. The complementary route has its own classification. And in this case, open quote, plus L4 minus S3, close quote. That's actually a wonderfully compact expression of what traditional theory would describe as an interval and its inversion. Traditional system, open quote, perfect fifth, perfect fourth, close quote. Your system, open quote, plus L4 minus S3 plus 7 minus 5, close quote. And notice how much more transparently the arithmetic appears. Open quote, 4 plus 3 equals 7, modal movements 7 plus 5 equals 12 semitones, close quote. So yes, in your Phrygian example, long becomes short when you take the complementary negative route. One important qualification. This is different from literally reversing the same vector. If you traveled EB as plus L4 plus 7, and then traveled BE along exactly the same path, that's minus L4 minus 7. But from E, choosing the opposite route around the octave to reach B gives minus S3 minus 5. That distinction, reverse vector versus a complementary route, is going to matter a lot when you build the Excel formulas.
Okay. Okay, so is there a rule? Is there any kind of rule Whereas, like, if it's short going forward, it's going to be short or long going backwards. Or do I have to? So, in other words, like, if I can figure out the forward distance and I say it's short or long, and then what's the formula to figure out the backwards, the reverse distance? Obviously, to get the number, you just take 7 minus the forward distance. That would be the reverse distance. Is there any function or formula to figure out the short and long reverse distance, or do I, in essence, have to like have a lookup table in my mind to then figure out the distance reversed and then basically apply the proper long short based on my mental lookup table? Cut my pinky nail before it's gonna slice off my ring finger if it grows any longer. And I'm okay.
Yes, there's a very clean rule. You do not need a lookup table. If you are taking the complementary route around the 7-node collection to the same pitch class, then, open quote, reverse modal distance equals 7 minus forward modal distance long short, close quote. So the quality simply flips. For example, forward reverse complement,
That's what I want to
minus
know.
minus minus, plus long
That's all I
1
need
minus
to
short
know.
6, plus short 1, minus long 6, plus long 2 minus short 5, short 2 minus long 5, plus long 3, short 4, short 3, minus long 4 minus short 3, short 4 minus long 3 is long 5, minus short 2, short 5, long 2 is long 6, minus short 1, short 6 minus long 1. So your Phrygian example, open quote, long 4, close quote becomes, open quote, 7 minus 4 equal 3, long short, close quote. Therefore, open quote minus short 3, close quote. And there's a mathematical reason. Your long short system has these chromatic sizes.
Pythagoras would
Modal
be proud.
distance, short, long. 1 semitone, 2 semitones,
I'm gonna-
2, 3, 4, 3, 5, 6, 4, 6, 7, fine, 6, 10, 11. Now take the octave complement. Open quote, reverse semitones of 12 minus forward semitones, close
That's what
quote.
we need to do.
Take your example.
That's how we need to
Open
do
quote,
it.
long 4 equals 7 semitones. 12 minus 7 equals 5 semitones. Reverse modal number equals 7 minus 4 equals 3. 5 semitones will short 3, close quote. Therefore, open quote, plus L4 equals minus S3 modulo the octave, close quote. Close quote. Another, open quote, plus S2 equals plus 3 semitones, close quote. Reverse, open quote, 7 minus 2 equals 5 modal steps, 12 minus 3 equals 9 semitones, close quote. 9 semitones is, open quote, long 5, close quote. Therefore, open quote, plus S2 equals minus L5, close quote. So you've actually got a remarkably simple two-part inversion function. Open quote, number 7 minus n size ls, close quote. That's it. And this is one place where your proposed nomenclature becomes strikingly simpler than traditional interval inversion. Traditional theory says, open quote, 9 minus interval number, major, minor, augmented, diminished, perfect, perfect, close quote. Your system says, open quote, 7 minus distance flip ls, close quote. Much easier to calculate mentally. One caveat remains important. That's the rule for the complementary route to the same pitch class. If you literally reverse the exact vector, walk L4 from A to B and then B back to A, the vector simply becomes minus L4 because you're retracing the same 7 semitone path. But for what you're describing, standing at the same origin and asking, what's this destination measured counterclockwise instead of clockwise? The rule is exactly, open quote, hash reverse equals minus 7 minus n and flip long short, close quote. That is clean enough that I think it deserves to become a fundamental rule of your distance notation.
Look at that. Reverse is negative bracket 7 minus n. 7 minus n, I mean, and then flip the long short. Oh my goodness. How clean is that? Give me a break. It's okay. So and if you did this, I mean, it's just absurd to think about what we're currently doing, right? So you have to make up so the current system makes up a number 9 because the 1 is doubled, because it's going to be both +1 and -1 of the scale degree if you're going clockwise and counterclockwise, because an ordinal system is designed to have a convention that tells you where the center is, and then the convention is supposed to tell you which way you go, but now you want to go the opposite direction, which defeats the purpose of an ordinal system in the first place. But so you have to make up a 9 to go counterclockwise, right? And then there is no function for you to determine the quality. You basically have to have a lookup table in your mind. Is that right? I mean, there's no like easy function to say, oh, if it was major going forward. I mean, you could say, you can come up with like a heuristic, like if it's major going forward, more likely than not, it's minor going backward, but it doesn't apply all the way through because the perfects don't really work, you know? So there's no like one rule that kind of would be like, so you basically have to say, you can come up with heuristics, but you basically have to say, all right, 9 minus the forward distance is the backwards distance. And then once I find the backwards distance, I map it out to my backwards distance X lookup table in my mind to determine quality notation for major, minor, perfect, augmented, and diminished. Is that, I mean, is that, are you serious? See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't get into music because of this. They're like, what the frick, man? This can't be, like, what are you doing?
Yes, with one important correction. Your criticism of the cognitive machinery is basically right, but I wouldn't say traditional theory has no rule for the quality. It does. The striking comparison is that its rule is a multi-case transformation, whereas your long-short system reduces the same operation to essentially a binary flip. Traditional interval inversion works like this. Open quote, interval numbers add to 9. Close quote, Todd. So open quote, second, 7th, 3rd, 6th, 4th, 5th, first, 8th, close quote. And then there's a separate quality transformation. Open quote, major, minor, perfect, perfect, augmented, diminished, close quote. So yes, to invert a major third, open quote, 9 minus 3 is 6, major, minor, therefore minor 6th, close quote. To invert a perfect fourth, open quote, 9 minus 4 equals 5, perfect, perfect, therefore perfect 5th, close quote. To invert an augmented fourth, open quote, 9 minus 4 will 5. Augmented diminished, therefore diminished 5th, close quote. So there is a deterministic algorithm. You don't need to memorize every resulting interval individually, but look at what the algorithm requires. Traditional inversion, you have to know two separate rules. Ordinal transformation, open quote, n equals to 9 minus n, close quote. Quality transformation, open quote, m, p, p, a, d, close quote. That's effectively a 3-case quality function over 5 quality labels. Compare that with what you've constructed. Your modal distance inversion, if there are 7 collection movements in the cycle, distance transformation, open quote, n equals 7 minus n, close quote, direction, open quote, plus minus, close quote, size transformation, open quote, long short, close quote. So, open quote, plus L4 minus S3, close quote. That's it. And the underlying chromatic arithmetic independently verifies it. Open quote, plus 7 semitones, minus 5 semitones, 7 plus 5 equals 12, close quote. That is extremely elegant. Where I would modify your historical mathematical criticism, I wouldn't characterize the 9 as something traditional theory simply made up because the system broke. There is a coherent reason for it. Traditional interval numbers are inclusive ordinal counts. CC, first CD equals second, CE, CF equals fourth. When you invert an interval, the two inclusive ordinal spans share endpoints in the counting scheme. That's why octave complementary interval numbers sum to 9 rather than 8. And that, I think, is actually the stronger criticism you're after. The 9 isn't arbitrary, it's evidence of the inclusive ordinal architecture. your system says, open quote, C equals 0, movement CD, 1 modal movement, CE equals 2 modal movements, close quote. Now the inversion arithmetic naturally sums to, open quote 7, close quote, because there are 7 actual collection movements around the cycle.
Okay, I have
Traditional,
a question.
open quote,
'cause this
third
is-
plus sixth equal
I
9,
mean, I hate to be a
close
jerk.
quote. Your measurement system, open
Sometimes, but I mean, I have to. Okay, the thing that, so I have to like the definition of an ordinal system. The definition of an ordinal system is basically saying that you have a convention that's going to help you define what the measure point is and which direction you're going to measure from. That's like the definition of an ordinal system, right? So like if I say the book is the 5th one over, then the ordinal system, I'm using an ordinal system because the convention is that you're going to be counting from left to right, and the one on the left is number 1, and therefore it's the 5th one over, counting the one on the left because of the convention. You see what I mean? That's like why you use an ordinal system, right? So like when you say that there's a systematic reason to why there's a 9, I get why mathematically there's a 9 if you go counterclockwise, but it's still just, the problem is they're using an ordinal system when it shouldn't be used, because now you're saying the convention is to go to the right, but now you're defeating the purpose of the ordinal. As soon as you go to the left, you've now defeated the purpose of the ordinal system, right? Because now there is no convention. Like, why are you using, you see what I mean? It's like, why would you, like, if you're going to say, hey, look, I could go left, right, up, or down, then you wouldn't use you wouldn't use an ordinal system, because by definition, the ordinal system is telling you the starting point and direction by convention. You see what I mean? So that means, yeah, I get it, that if you go to the left, then why do you get 9? Well, because you don't have a 0, and therefore the 1 is like the first point to the right, but it also has to be the first point to the left. So it's kind of like the 1 is both +1 and -1, which means that you're off by not 1, but by 2, which means that instead of subtracting 7, because you would have the collection, or 6, you'd have to subtract 7 plus 2, which is 9, to account for the fact that the 1 represents not just the 1 in a clockwise distance, but the 1 in the counterclockwise distance. You see what I mean? Like, it's just like I get that there's a mathematical reason for it, but I mean, like trying to tell me that like there's some kind of like reason for it. There's no, that it doesn't. Why would you do that?
Yes, I see the distinction you're making, and I think there's a strong version of your argument, but I'd change one piece of terminology so nobody can knock it down on a technicality. An ordinal system itself does not, by definition, establish direction. Ordinal numbers encode rank order: first, second, third, fourth. The underlying ordered set supplies whatever direction order convention exists. So with the books, you're really combining two things: open quote, convention, start at the left and order toward the right. Ordinal, first book, second book, third book, fifth book, close quote. Once that order is established, fifth identifies a position in that ordering, and I think that actually gives you an even stronger way of expressing your objection. The problem isn't ordinals require direction, it's open quote. Ordinals work beautifully for identifying positions in an established ordering. They become awkward when they're recruited to measure sign displacement between positions. Close quote. That's your target. If I say open quote, Robert finished 5th in the race. Close quote. Fantastic use of an ordinal. Nobody needs. Open quote. Robert finished +4 positions from 0. Close quote. Because I'm identifying rank, not measuring displacement. But now suppose I ask, open quote, how far is 5th place from 2nd place? Close quote. Suddenly, open quote, 5 minus 2 equals 3 positions. Close quote. I don't call that a 4th. I've transitioned from position to distance. That's exactly your music theory complaint. And your one becomes both directions intuition is pointing at the inclusive counting problem. Let's make the cleanest possible number line. Actual displacement, open quote, -3 minus 2 minus 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3, close quote. Beautiful. The origin is 0, direction comes from the sign. Magnitude comes from the number. Now imagine forbidding 0 and insisting that the origin itself be called first. Going upward through a 7-node collection, open quote, position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, movement 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, close quote. There's the off by 1. Now invert an ordinal interval. Traditional, open quote, 3rd 6, 3 plus 6 equals 9, close quote. Movement representation, open quote, +2 minus 5 magnitudes 2 plus 5 equals 7, close quote. And this is where I think your 9 argument gets really powerful. Why is it 9 instead of 7? Because the traditional numbers aren't displacement magnitudes. They're inclusive endpoint counts. A traditional third contains, open quote, C1, D2, E3, close quote. But CE involves only, open quote, 2 diatonic movements, close quote. Its octave complement, EC, is traditionally a 6th, open quote, EFG, AB6, close quote dot, but involves, open quote, 5 diatonic movements, close quote. Therefore, open quote, traditional, 3 plus 6 equals 9, movement, 2 plus 5 equals 7, close quote. The mysterious-looking 2-unit discrepancy is exactly, open quote, +1 at one endpoint calculation, +1 at the complementary endpoint calculation equals +2, close quote. So your intuition about the 2 is mathematically on target, although I'd phrase it as double inclusive counting offsets, rather than 1 is +1 and -1. That latter wording isn't technically what traditional theory is doing and gives an opponent an easy objection. And this is the devastating question. Don't ask, open quote, why does traditional theory use 9? Close quote, because it has a perfectly legitimate answer. Ask, open quote, why are we using ordinal inclusive position counts to perform a displacement operation in the first place? Close quote. That's much harder, because inversion is inherently about a relationship. Open quote, how far from A to B one way, how far from A to B the other way, close quote. That's naturally a sign distance problem. Once formulated as displacement, open quote, D plus complement equals cycle, close quote. For 7 modal...
Let it go. Let it go. I'm gonna tell... Let's try the joke break. Let's see. I was trying to book a hotel 8 miles, like, from Disneyland. So I opened the new Music Theory GPS system. Oh no. Elon Musk doesn't think in ordinals directionally, I don't think. But I don't know. Because he puts the satellites up there, you know. Apparently, I can't search by miles. I have to search by interval. So 8 miles is a 6th. Okay, fine. So then it asked major 6th or minor 6th. And it's like, I don't know. 8 miles. I'm looking for 8 miles. But apparently that's a minor 6th away. 8 miles is a minor 6th. So a major 6th is 9 miles. So I ask why you're calling them major and minor instead of just like 8 and 9. Because I haven't even given you a freaking starting point. So I don't even, like, what are you even talking about? What are you even on about right now? And then the answer is like context. It's like apparently the original road to Disney is like a major route. So every other distance gets compared to that distance of the major road. It's like, okay, that's weird. Because we already measure like in miles. and street blocks or whatever. I don't see why you have to compare it to like one street, but whatever, dude. So then I decide I want a hotel closer. It's like 6 miles away. And the GPS says that's an augmented fourth or a diminished fifth distance from the park. And it's like, okay, wait, what happened to the major minor terminology? I thought I was just getting used to this major minor thing, and now you've introduced two other names that are include. Why? Apparently those don't work here because the normal fifth on the major route is perfect, so it gets a special name. In other words, like when they named it after the main route to Disneyland, they figured that this distance of 7 miles away was so important that although major would have been normal because it was on the major route distance wise, they wanted to make it like super special. So that's perfect. That's like the perfect distance. So it's like, okay, good. So we've added perfect. I just wanted to 6 miles, but apparently we need context, even though I didn't even tell you where the starting point was. But all right. So 7 miles is a perfect fifth, but 6 miles is either a diminished fifth or an augmented fourth. So how far are those? 6 miles both? Yes. So what's the difference? Spelling. Spelling's the difference. And it's like, dude, it's a road. Like, I'm just trying to get to the... So apparently I need correct spelling because context matters. Which one is my hotel? That's when I noticed something. I haven't entered the hotel yet. The GPS doesn't even know where I'm starting. How does it have any freaking context if it doesn't know the starting point? What? It would just be 6 miles away if it doesn't have a starting point, wouldn't it? So somehow it knows my 6 mile trip is major, minor, perfect, augmented, or diminished, but it doesn't know where I am at this point. So I finally enter the hotel address and the GPS recalculates. Good news. My diminished fifth is actually an augmented fourth. So it's the same hotel, same Disney, same 6 miles, but now it's spelled correctly. And so it's like, why is it spelled correctly? Because although it's 6 miles, it only has 4 streets. It's only 4 streets away. Instead of the other one was 6 miles, but it was like 5 streets away. But it still called it like a diminished fifth, even though it didn't know if it had 5 miles or 6 miles, but it just said it just like guessed that. I don't know. That's when I realized this music theory GPS has a very unusual definition of context. Apparently, knowing where I started isn't context. Knowing what adjective to attach is 6 miles. I don't know. I could have done it better, but you get the idea. Let's turn on the... I'll try to get a song going. We'll turn on the thing. Turn on the audio.
We hit like 2 trucks at the center line. No room to turn, no warning sign. Both of us certain, only one walks home. Steel against steel, bone against bone. He swung in my head.
let's try this one. See what it gives us on the audio. See what it gives us on the audio.
I was trying to book a hotel about 8 miles from Disneyland, so I opened the new Music Theory GPS. It shows hotels and gives you music theory lessons. This Sunset Resort looks perfect. Let's book it. Apparently, I can't search by miles. I have to search by interval. 8 miles is a 6. Fine. Whatever. Let's just go. Major 6th or minor 6th? I don't know. 8 miles. A major 6th is a large interval. A minor 6th is a smaller one. So the major 6th road is longer? 8 miles to go! Let's follow the map to learn more. Apparently that's a minor 6th. A major 6th is 9 miles. So I ask why we're calling them major and minor instead of 8 and 9. It makes no sense! Why make it so complicated? Then I decide I want a hotel closer. 6 miles. GPS says augmented 4th or diminished 5th. Let's go with the diminished 5th. It's closer. All right. Wait, what happened to major and minor? Now it's all augmented and dimensioned? This GPS is so confusing.
It's the advanced routes, lad.
But I don't get it.
Study the map.
Why is this one called perfect?
Because the normal 5th on the major route is perfect, so it gets a special name.
So other 5ths aren't perfect?
Correct. Other 5ths are compared to...
Oh, good. We've added perfect. I just want a distance. Great. More options I don't need. Fine. I'll take the diminished one. It's 6 miles. Let's get this over with. So 7 miles is a perfect 5th. But 6 miles is either a diminished 5th or an augmented 4th. Same distance, but 2 different names. It's all about the musical context. How far are those? 6 miles. Both? Yes, both are correct. Both are 6. What's the difference between a diminished 5th and an augmented 4th? Same road, same distance. But spelling makes all the difference. The augmented 4th... And it's like, dude, it's a road! Who cares about augmented 4ths and diminished 5ths? Just drive the road, man! Look at this view,
Just
hotels and
driving
palm
sideways.
trees. Distance is
What is
irrelevant.
happening?
The road is the adventure. Woo, let's go! Wow! And apparently I need the correct spelling because context matters. Fine. Which one is my hotel? Harmony Inn? Cadence Suites? Wait, is it Theoretica Grand? Diminished Lodge? Is that the one? Diminished Lodge! That's it! Whew. Spelling really does matter. That's when I noticed something. I haven't entered the hotel yet. The GPS doesn't know where I'm starting. Ugh, this GPS is useless without a starting point. Okay, let's try this way. So somehow it knows my 6-mile trip is major, minor, perfect, augmented, or dimensioned, but it doesn't know where I am. Look at all this data, but no location. Ugh, just tell me where to go already. I finally enter the hotel address. The GPS recalculates. Good news. My diminished 5th is actually an augmented 4th. Same hotel, same Wonderland, same 6 miles. But now it's spelled correctly. Recalculating now. Spelling corrected. Nothing changed but the label. That's when I realized Music Theory GPS has a very unusual definition of context. Apparently, knowing where I started isn't context. Knowing what adjective to attach to 6 miles is. So let's see where this path leads.
Alright. Interesting. It's a diminished 5th, but I didn't tell you the starting point. I didn't tell you the collection. Well, it's giving you the quality. The quality of what? The quality relative. What is 6 notes away gives the quality if it doesn't have any context? Doesn't it? I don't. What? How? I don't know. Whatever.